More of you, O Christ, less of me. More of you, O Christ, less of me. More of you, O Christ, less of me. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts draw us closer to you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Now, some of you may have noticed that I am wearing a brace on my left hand. And some of you may have noticed that there's even a whole lot of tape going down. Now, what I have is known as an alveoclavicular tendinitis. But what it is known in colloquial, it used to be known as gamekeeper's thumb, and now it's known as mommy thumb. So I've got mommy thumb. And like the last time I had tendinitis in my other hand, it happened also at the very beginning of Lent, which was very odd, but it did. And so I told people I've given up my right hand for Lent. That was a different kind of tendinitis, but both injuries happened while cooking. I have a tendency to think I'm stronger than I am and pick up big pots, hold them like this, and scrape them out. And sure enough, if that didn't get that tendon all the way through my clavicle. And when I did the other hand, I was chopping a rutabaga and managed to get tendinitis two ways, both this way and this way. Now, you all know me well enough to know that messing up my hands is a real problem. Marcy, I cannot play the guitar right now. If you can't press your thumb against the back of the neck, you cannot play the guitar. I also cannot play the piano except one-handed, because if you try to play a scale, you have to, the thing I can't do is move this thumb. Well, I can't do it like this. I can't do that. And if you can't do that, you can't play the piano, you can't play the organ, you can't play the guitar. And typing is interesting because I'm now typing with 4 fingers here and a full hand over here, and that does something with my brain that's really weird. And I've seen a kinesiologist about this, same one that has been helping Nancy with her knee. Her name is Natasha, and she is no joke. So she tested me. Before she started working on this, she did all these tests on me and told me that I am neurologically disorganized. I said, okay, what does that mean? And she said it means that when you're walking, your right hand and your left foot should be of equal strength, and then the opposite when you go the other way. And she said right now, all of your strength is on the left side, in part because you're injured. And so your brain is literally not working right because you messed up your thumb. Now, this has been a real interesting spiritual thing to think about. You'd think that what's going on with your thumb is not a big spiritual practice opportunity. Oh, but you would be so wrong. Not only has it changed like what I do and how I do it and make me incredibly mindful, because if I hit this on anything, it is searing pain, and tendons, because they don't have a blood supply, do not heal quickly. So if you re-injure it, you're just adding months to your recovery. I had someone tell me they had this for 2 years. I cannot imagine not playing the piano for 2 years or the guitar. really, seriously, this is like a spiritual crisis for me. And it hurts. And it makes me have to ask for help, which I'm not good at. You all know this about me. But it means that, I see the dishes and I want to just do the dishes. As opposed to say to Colleen, would you do the big pans? Because I can't really lift big pans right now. If I can do it using the middle of the sink to push the pan against, I can do it. So small pans are okay, etc. But big pans, not so good. Cooking, I now know lifting one pan with one hand. That's certainly not happening because I don't want to wreck the other one. Can you imagine if I wrecked the other one? So I'm being extremely careful. I've had to rethink everything I do, and it is so deep that it's made me neurologically disorganized. This is an interesting thing to think about when you listen to this song that talks about extreme hunger and thirst. Now you know that the Psalms, we have no idea exactly who wrote them. David wrote some of them, we assume, and then some others were probably written by people around David. Some of them could have even been women, but probably not. They lived in a dry desert area. And as you know, while I can go a long time without a thumb, it limits some things, it's not life-threatening. And you can go a fair amount of time without food. You could probably go a couple of months, maybe even more. We've certainly seen people in the developing world who have not had adequate nutrition for long periods of time, and they can live a long time. But if you don't have water, you're dead in 3 days. That's why when you're in a desert, you have to really pay attention to water because we must have water. So when he begins this psalm, when she begins this psalm with, I have thirst for you, O God, that means it's desperate. It's not just, oh, I'd like a drink of water. It's desperate. Because to be thirsty in a desert could be deadly. But there is an assurance in this psalm that if you seek, or just take the moment to notice, as Tim said, at the moment when you realize you need help, grace will appear. The holy shows up for us. And we don't really have to do a whole lot, but we do have to be mindful. I will keep injuring this and still be neurologically disorganized if I am not mindful and paying attention to the moments. And it's easy to be in real trouble, in need of help, and completely oblivious to the fact. Sometimes that's because we're just too busy doing other things. Some of that may be that we have simply kind of gone numb. And that's a trauma response. And you may not think, well, I'm not traumatized. Well, there's more trauma wandering through the ether right now than usual. And you may be having minor trauma responses that may keep you from recognizing that I am spiritually thirsty, that I'm in a moment of challenge and I actually need help. I need help maybe from someone else, from family or friends or trusted people who are in your life, or I may need help from the holy. And the truth is, it's always both and, right? We usually need a little help from the people around us, or maybe We need somebody like a kinesiologist. We need even professional help. And do not shy away from getting professional help if you need it. You know, don't just say, well, it'll clear up. Get it diagnosed, get it looked at. But listen to your soul and see if it is content. Because by the end of this psalm, that's how we know that we are in alignment with the holy, that we have been willing to receive that grace that is always available, because our soul will be content. So, be mindful, notice, but also take time to notice if your soul is content. And how do we do that? Well, in our book group, this book we're reading, Aflame, talks about learning from silence. And we are in the season of Lent. So taking extra time for silence is a way to notice if you are content at the soul level. And that can be hard because we live in noisy places. I know I've said this before, but I think about it often. At the monastery that I'm a part of, Abbot Philip used to say, the world is 90% noise and about 10% silence. We just try to flip that and make it 90% silence and 10% noise. And if you can find even 20 minutes of silence, it'll change your life. And if you need help making sure you get at least a little silence, hey, the four of us that are regularly in our interfaith meditation Zoom room, I'll tell you what, that 40 minutes of silence might be the thing that's keeping me from going over the edge. Because we keep silence during that time. We don't really do anything but be in the silence. And it can be, sometimes for me, it can be a check-in. Sometimes I pray the Psalms. Sometimes I take time just to think of a mantra. I don't usually do Om, but sometimes it's just breathing. Just breathing. So find those moments. If you've got an app on your phone and you can just set a timer for 10 minutes, set a timer for 10 minutes. And just take time to close your eyes. Look inside. Am I content? And if not, I'll tell you what, the Holy is likely to rush right in with the grace you need. And as gonna be Pastor D has told us, that's the winning team. That's the winning team. That's the one that never loses. That's the source of grace that you can always count on. Friends and family, even the most trustworthy, may have an off day, but God never does. God never has an off day. God has always got you, even when you're oblivious to it. So the last thing I just want to point out about the Psalms, you may be wondering why for Lent I've mostly been preaching on the Psalms as opposed to the Gospels. I have found that right now, one of the most absolutely soul-edifying things about the Psalms is the Psalms always have this mix of opposites. There's praise you, O God, everything is so beautiful and so wonderful, and there's also, I can't believe how awful it is. I'm groaning for you. And there's even in some Psalms, not in this one, oh God, please break the teeth in their evil little mouths. And some days I feel like that too. So being able to hold all the juxtapositions at once, the praise, the gratitude, the I need help, and the I cannot believe what's going on. Please, oh God, help with that too, can be really helpful. So if you've never prayed the Psalms, that is a great practice to pick up this Lent. So my final invitation to all of you is to make time to be mindful and to notice whether your soul is content, or maybe you need help from someone or from the holy. And hopefully you'll ask for both if you really need help. And lastly, recognize that no matter what is happening in your life, there is also room for gratitude and for praise and encouragement. Not only for yourself, but for others, because we're all going through this together. And make time to be with folks who encourage you and who are of help. And be that for others as well. Because if we go through it together, we know that wherever 2 or 3 of us are gathered, God is right in the midst of us. God is also as close as your nearest breath and as the moment when you simply say, I'm lost. I need help. May you find that your soul becomes content this week. Amen.